Hey, everybody. Welcome to another week of Mavens of Data. We've got an awesome show for you this week. We are talking about data governance, and we have a fantastic guest. Before I introduce him, I'd love for all of you in the audience to just drop into the chat. Let me know on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you think you know data governance personally? That's going to help George and I steer this conversation. With that, let me introduce our guest, George Firican. He is a data governance expert. He's a course creator on the subject. He's the founder of LightsOnData. You can find him on YouTube. And I think, George, you do a better job than anybody else at making data governance really digestible and even fun. And that's so excited to have you here. If you could say hi to the audience, that would be great.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, John, for having me. It's my pleasure.
Great. Yeah. Would you mind telling us a little bit about kind of your background, what you typically do, George?
Yeah. So, like you mentioned, I'm a data governance expert. That's sort of what I live and breathe on a day-to-day basis. My team, actually, I do work at a university. So the team that I do manage, not just data governance, but also the business intelligence team and the data analytics team that really focuses on the alumni engagement, as well as the fundraising aspects of the university. So we do a lot of great and fun things and winning quite a few awards along the way, because I do have an amazing team that I work with. So I'm very grateful to that. And yeah, on the side, sometimes I do consulting on these topics and in different industries, so not just a nonprofit. And as you did mention, I enjoy creating content. So just trying to put all of this in video format, articles, and other forms of, how should we put it, entertainment for learning. So yeah, I do my best to try and raise this dry topic into something that's a little bit more exciting and manageable.
Yeah, and your best is great, George. We appreciate all the effort. With that, we'll get into kind of the meat of the conversation. Here are a few of the topics we're going to be covering. It'll be more of a free-flowing conversation, so we won't necessarily follow this linearly, but these are some of the things that you can expect. To kick things off, George, for folks who are maybe not super familiar with data governance yet, we saw a lot of people in the chat answering like 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10. There's a good amount of those folks here. Could you just talk about like what exactly is data governance? What goes into a good data governance program?
Yeah, happy to. To keep it short, data governance is kind of managing data with guidance. To give you a longer explanation, I want to go back to this one saying that Clive Humby put together that's very controversial. And he said, data is the new oil, right? Thumbs up if you've heard that one. I know it's very polarizing. There are people that are for it or against it. I mean, it is a comparison. I don't know if it's a great comparison. There are a lot of ways that data is not like like oil, but what he meant was that data is valuable. That's really the message that he was trying to get across. And so to get value out of data, you got to do a lot of things to it. Data has to be integrated, transformed, interoperated, analyzed, modeled, disseminated, all these things. And at the same time, it needs to be clean, consistent, accessible, secured, defined, and understood. And it's, not as simple as it sounds, right? And to do all these things, you need to put together some policies in place. You need to make sure that you have those processes, that you do know what steps you need to follow to have it clean, consistent, and everything else. What standards it needs to abide to, and who's doing it, and what are they doing. And for that, you also need roles and you need responsibilities to be clearly defined, right? So that's kind of what data governance is. It's this discipline that provides the necessary policies, processes, standards, roles, and responsibilities that are needed to ensure that data is managed as an asset. That's at least my view of what data governance is. And why I'm mentioning this is because if you Google what is data governance, you're going to get a lot of different definitions on it, which in a way it's a little bit frustrating and kind of against. I mean, that's what data governance is trying to do, among other things, to kind of clarify what does data mean and who should tell you what data means and how should be used and secured and processed and everything else.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think that's a really good overview, George. I love that you included roles and responsibilities and not just what happens, but who does it. Could you talk a little bit about that? Like in your experience, what types of people are usually kind of responsible for data governance? Is it on the analyst team? Is it like a data engineering team? Who's
Mm.
usually involved there?
I mean, normally you have, let's say, a data governance office. At the very least, you have one individual that's a data governance manager, director, whatever title you want to give to them. And you then have a bunch of data stewards. And the data stewards are the ones with that subject matter expertise over their domain. And they're able to contribute all this knowledge that they have into putting together the standards, what are the business rules, what are the goals that they're trying to accomplish, and then what are all these things that need to be put together to make sure that from their business unit's perspective or their domain knowledge perspective, those things are met. And overall, they're meeting the goals of the entire organization. So yeah, they're kind of pulling together all this knowledge, and then as a group, they might come up with the definitions. What is a customer, and then going into the details of the metadata, the technical metadata related to anything that you have data on customer. What is the first name, and how should you key that into the database, and what's the table column, and all these funny details. And of course, there's a strong collaboration with IT. But data governance is not IT. I just want to make that clear, because oftentimes I think it does fall under that role, and it doesn't always go so well. And why is that? Because I think data governance needs to be in the hands of the business. They're the ones that come with those requirements, and they're the ones that come with the knowledge on what does value mean to them. So yes, it's a very strong collaboration between IT and the business, but it should not fall under IT. So it's not equated as it's a technology solution. Tools help,
Yeah.
but they're not the answer.
Yeah, I love that sort of that picture of like a hub and spoke model where there's some people that are housing the data, but they might not necessarily know all the exact needs that the business has, and so it's really an interplay between those two groups, kind of out on the spokes as well. I love that. Yeah, that's fantastic, George.
And
How about
for decision making, I also want to add that you usually have some sort of a data governance council or committee, or regardless of the name, it's a group of high-level individuals within the business. Usually, do have a representation from every major business unit, and they're kind of laying out the roadmap for data governance. Of course, they're being advised as well from the data governance point of view, from the technical point of view, but they're the ones that are deciding, okay, well, this is a priority for us right now. This is what data governance should focus on. And they can also approve different things, such as, hey, this is what a customer means for our organization. So some very high level stuff. Whereas, like you mentioned, the hub spoke model, which something that I would recommend as a framework. You have the high level that encompasses the entire organization, such as the customer piece, but then you might have some very domain specific definitions or standards, processes, even policies that are kind of left to them, while following all these guidelines and best practices put together by the central hub.
Yep. Yeah. That's fantastic to hear you break it down like this. How about, I'm curious, like if you were to go in and look at a company, are there any kind of clear red flags that they're not doing a good job with data governance versus, green flags that you would say, oh yeah, wow, you guys are doing great? Like if you were coming in cold to a company, what would it look like in either direction?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there are companies that I talk to that are saying, we don't need data governance. We have good data quality. Why would we need data governance? And when you kind of look under the hood, you can understand a couple of things. One, it's either that it's a very disjoint opinion between leadership and what's happening at the ground level. And actually, the reality is not as rosy as they're painting it to be. That happens a lot. And second, they might actually have good data quality or security, privacy, and all those areas. They're meeting their regulations and everything else. And they're actually doing data governance. They're just not naming it as such.
They don't. Yeah.
So, they might not be aware that they're doing parts of it, and it's maybe not formalized in that way.
Yeah, I'm going back thinking of my last company, and I'd say that was the case. Like there were people that there was data security team there were people thinking about like GDPR compliance, thinking about all the infrastructure and kind of doing a lot of the activities associated with data governance. But I don't think I ever heard the term data governance. We'd hear some of the other terms. So I think it's good to kind of formalize that program and use that language because it is really important.
Yeah. But back to your question on some of the red flags, a big one is when you don't have that support from leadership. So it's somebody just from the ground up that it's really asking for this, and they're voicing their opinion and they really want to do something, but then they don't have the buy-in of leadership, and that's very hard to move forward and scale up, especially to do something that's enterprise-wide as a program. That's one really big red flag as well. The other one is if they haven't implemented sort of like change management best practices from the start. So then they don't have the buy-in overall of the entire enterprise, and they're doing things in silos. And they are rolling it out, but as they are rolling it out, there's a lot of resistance being met. And it's very hard to get people on board, even if it's something that's a change that's good for them. Naturally, you would have that resistance. We all resist change, even if it's good for us. We kind of have a knee-jerk reaction most of the time. And if you don't have them from the ground up and part of the conversations and part of the solution as well, and to tie your solution to their needs and their pain points, it's very hard to move forward, and you're just going to encounter a lot of no, why are we doing this? And I'm not going to help you out. And it's going to be a lot more difficult to, again, scale up and move forward with a data governance program, or really anything else that you're trying to put together.
Yeah, if you don't do that, get ahead of it and get people excited about kind of the benefit and why it's so important, they just sort of view it as, hey, this is more work. This is a new thing I have to learn. Like, not the most important thing on my list. I'm not going to focus on it, right? So I love that focus on the change management and really getting ahead of it is really smart. George,
and lastly,
go ahead.
So I just wanted to mention one third thing that I see often is when data governance is really not tied to a strategic goal, and there's not that connection that's being made with the business goals. And then, why are you doing this? And people can't really answer. And sometimes it's just, we just want to have 100% data quality rates, or so that can be difficult as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. There's a good question here, George, from Kajal in the chat. Would love to hear your thoughts on how a firm can implement data governance. What are the initial steps that you would take, and what's a good framework to follow? So like if a company hasn't really thought about data governance yet, how would you advise they kind of get the ball rolling?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I would start by understanding, again, those strategic goals and aligning the data governance program with those objectives. And there are usually kind of three main areas why an organization would want to embark on implementing a data governance program. The first one is regulatory compliance, and it's kind of the stick as well. And we see a lot of financial institutions or those working in healthcare that need to abide to those regulations. And that's sort of that first impediment on, okay, well, that's why we got to do it. The other one is some sort of business strategic initiative, things that we see in a lot of companies. Hey, we want to get better new customers, or we want to get better customer support, or something along those lines. And then that at the operation level kind of equates to we need consistent reporting. We want to invest in AI. We want to start our business intelligence program and scale that up, things like that. And the last one, we need to improve our data quality. And actually, this last one, I know it's a little bit more operational and not necessarily tied to a specific goal of the organization, but it's the underlying foundation of the first two that I mentioned. So in order to improve data quality, so you can do all these fun things with AI or even be compliant, you do need to have good data quality for sure. And oftentimes it's sort of a byproduct of data governance. So even if that's not your immediate goal, you're going to end up having better data quality if you go into data governance. Anyway, so that's the first step. Okay, so understanding the goals and aligning your program with those objectives. Then is to do some sort of a assessment on what is the current landscape looking like. What are the pain points that you want to address? And then from a data perspective, I like to look at 3 or 4 different pillars. From a data acquisition or data creation perspective, data maintenance, data dissemination, and maybe, if there's a case, some sort of like a data destruction, that's not as often looked at, but yeah, it can matter. So once you know where your data is coming from, how it's being used, you identify some of those gaps and issues, and from there you kind of focus on what are those low-hanging fruits that again match the objectives that your organization wants to do, and then it's just kind of building that foundation with the key stakeholders, identifying that data governance council members, the data stewards. Of course, you got to secure that executive sponsorship, as I mentioned before.
Yep.
And yeah, just start doing the work. And what are the policies that need to be put together first? What are the standards that you need to look at first? Processes and everything else. And after all of this is done, you can then take a look at the tools on how we could optimize some of this work.
Yeah, that's fantastic answer, George. Because y'all hope that that satisfies. And shout out to Scott Taylor. Saw him here in the chat. Scott was on the show
Scott.
a couple of weeks ago. For folks who might want to check out the recording of Scott's show, he does a really good job talking about, like, say you wanted to implement this data governance program that that George is talking about. How do you secure buy-in for that? How do you tell that story? Scott's amazing at that. So I hope folks will check him out in general and check out that show too. And George, I love how much you stress the importance of executive sponsorship and getting that support at the top, because I've been in a couple different situations where I've been in like a company that was mediocre at data and I was trying to help them, and I didn't really have that executive sponsorship at my back, and it was super hard. And then I was at a company that was terrible at data, but the CEO believed what I was trying to tell him, that we wanted to fix it, and he gave me all the resources I needed. He gave me engineers when I needed them. And so even starting from a worse place, because I had the support of the most senior person, it was actually an easier task, in my opinion, than kind of fighting an uphill battle from the middle. So I love your point about getting that that senior level buy-in. That's fantastic. You another thing you mentioned talking about AI and how folks are thinking about that so much more. How do you think AI changes data governance? Does it, like, are there different focus areas? What are your thoughts there?
So from what I'm seeing, first of all, is that AI is providing another great reason how and why organizations need to invest in data governance. Because AI it's based on its data and statistics. If you don't have good data, you're not going to have good AI results. Yeah. So now we're seeing data governance being more in focus because of AI. We're often hearing about AI governance as well, but kind of under the hood is really a lot is data governance in essence. And I like to think of data governance as the conscience of ethical data and AI practices overall. And again, it's because it provides those principles, policies, processes, roles and responsibilities to ensure that data is used responsibly. And this means not only complying with laws and regulations, but also upholding the values of transparency and accountability and fairness in all data and AI initiatives. So that's one way that I'm seeing AI sort of influencing data governance. At the operational level, yes, we're also seeing some efficiencies being created on AI tools, helping us a little bit more to even document things or finding out data, mapping that data, and getting the metadata out of it. So it's definitely bringing a little bit of efficiency as well. Even kind of monitoring the changes in laws and regulations and kind of pinpointing those changes to us, it can help.
Yeah, it's interesting. And if you kind of think about all that and how it all fits together, like if you're saying companies are maybe more of a light is being shined on their data because AI is so important and people realize garbage in, garbage out. So you've got to get the data right if you want the AI to be right. And then so there's kind of more attention on data, which is great. And then, if it's, they still need us to do a lot of it, set up the frameworks, but some of the nitty gritty grunt work, you're getting help with it from some of the AI tools. I love that as an overall picture personally, right? It seems like maybe better work, more fun work. Some of the sludge
Hmm.
is helped out. So yeah, pretty fantastic outlook from my perspective based on your answer.
I think so
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yeah. So if somebody was interested in kind of getting into data governance themselves,
Yeah.
what are some of the things you think, like, what should somebody focus on learning? Maybe first couple of things that they might want to learn.
Um, I recommend the DEMA DMBOK. So that's the Data Management Association book of knowledge that they put together. It might be a little bit outdated, but I think still offers a really good overview over all data management areas, uh, out of which data governance is one of those areas. But yeah, I think it kind of really offers that high level overview and how they all work together. So anywhere from the business intelligence, data warehousing, data security, data governance, data quality management, and all these different areas that I think it's at a high level, at least it's part of or should be part of everyone's data literacy knowledge. And that's the first step where I would start. And then yeah, just I mean there's a lot of content available online that I would recommend. Of course, Lights on Data, when I pitch that in, there's a lot of resources there and templates, and check out my courses as well. Let me put it this way, and I'm not being shy about it, but when I created this one course on practical data governance, it's one course that I wish I had when I started out in my career early on. I had to do a lot of tries and kind of see what works, what doesn't, and of course, participating in a lot of conferences and did a lot of reading and everything. But really, nothing really beats the experience that you're getting on the ground level. And from that experience, I started to put together all these templates and really the course content overall on how I think people should do data governance and what are those steps, practical steps that they need to follow and how they should do it and things to watch out for and things like that. So yeah, I'm just wanted to pitch that out because I see Scott in the audience there. I want to mention there's so Scott and I did this story or covered this story a few years ago. Back in 2020, there was a really big news article that what it was about. It was, I think it was the Citigroup was fined $400 million by the OCC, the Office of the Comptroller of Currency. And part of the fine was, well, risk management, lack of risk management, and data governance. So it was really called out in big, bold letters that because you did not have data governance in place, we're fining you $400 million. I mean, that's a lot of money. In a way, we were happy that data governance was getting that attention. There was also a value added to what does it mean for not having data governance. Well, just yesterday, they've announced that they're fined again, I think like over $180 million or something, because the work that they promised that they were going to do to put together their data governance framework and manage the risks a little bit better and everything, they haven't been done at the pace that they promised it was going to be done. So, hey, there's a follow-up there that Scott reminded me of.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. It's like you think about them, think about the carrot that's there for them to get it right, right? Like not get fined again. There's
Yeah.
pretty big carrot, and that's a company with unbelievable resources, really smart people, and still they haven't done it. It seems like it's a hard problem, like it seems like a lot of companies really struggle with it. Like what do you think makes it so hard that we kind of continuously struggle with it, or at least deprioritize it, maybe
Yeah.
lower on the list than we should? Like, what do you think goes into that?
So, I mean, from the Citigroup perspective, from what I know is, first of all, they've acquired a lot of other financial institutions. And I'm mentioning this because that's always such a big problem that's missed out whenever there's a merger, whenever there's an acquisition. They're really not looking into the systems and the state of their data ecosystem overall when they're acquiring all that stuff. It's often not part of that risk register. And when that's really missed, and when you're trying to then integrate your processes, your systems, your data best practices and standards and everything else, there's a lot of problems. So I think they've also inherited a lot of that, and trying to standardize it all across multiple systems, but also different stakeholders and needs. And it's not as simple as it sounds, for sure. There's a lot of money that needs to be put into it, while also trying to make sure that the current operations are still running.
Yep.
So it is definitely difficult. And I've seen that probably 99% of the cases when there's a merger or an acquisition, that's kind of missed or not part of their merging, I guess, criteria. And it's often creating problems. So that's one big thing. And the other one is, the fact of the matter is that data governance is not getting enough attention as it should. And it could be that, it's hard to prove the value. Sometimes it's not a direct relationship between doing data governance right, or having it in the first place, to the benefits and the value that you're getting out of it. So, from an accounting perspective, sometimes they're just going to see money being poured into it, type of a thing.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, they see the cost. They don't necessarily it's harder to quantify that benefit. Even with cases like Citi getting those 2 ridiculously huge fines, a lot of people aren't thinking about that. And and honestly, like, I could probably be thinking about it more myself at our company, to be honest. So, yeah. George, another couple of questions have come up, related questions that I think are good ones from Aquila. One of them would be, like, are there certain tools that you would recommend companies use? Like, is there any software, things like that are like, man, if you want to be good at data governance, or like, these are your favorite tools or must-haves?
Yeah, there are some that I prefer. I think I don't want to name vendors, but there's definitely those that are sort of like the I don't know, the Cadillac of the industry, but you also have to pay a lot more for it. They do things a lot better. I think those tools that do it better are the ones that are that have that user interface and integrations on how that information gets digested by the end user, by the non-technical end user. And yeah, there are some that are doing very well. Let's say, there's this tool that you have all these definitions on, let's say, what a customer is. And as you're reading your documents or your contracts, and the customer kind of pops up, the customer word within those documents, or on your intranet, SharePoint site, what have you, sort of like a wiki type of a thing. You can hover over it and then see the definition, which is then in context of what you're reading. That's a really cool thing to do. And of course, that can also be extended on all these data elements as well, for like technical individuals. So I think a really good tool is one that's making it easy for anybody that's non-technical to be able to look up stuff, to understand stuff, to not make wrong assumptions on whatever they're reading or whatever they're consuming, either from an information perspective or really at a data perspective. Even looking at a report and you're seeing all the columns or the graphs, all of a sudden you're looking at what the intent was for you to look at, not what your interpretation would be on how those things are being calculated. So that's definitely one thing. I would also recommend some sort of a data catalog tool that's able to kind of scour through all your environments and find out all these different data sets, and then help you catalog it, in essence, and document it as much as possible. It's always really cool to have some sort of a checkout function, kind of like the Amazon shopping cart, where you browse through Amazon. And, as we know, Amazon is pretty good at kind of finding what you're looking for, I find. Even though they have like millions of products, if at least to me, it feels like whenever I'm looking for something, I'm kind of finding what I'm looking for, even though I'm not really being specific. So good data catalog, well, not just the tool, but also the implementation as well, can do a similar thing for your data sets. And as you're finding them, you can, see what they're about. Does it match the use case that I'm needing them for? and then I can request access to it, and then that can go through the process of being approved or not. And of course, then a central unit will be able to then track that and see all the different usages of that data in case there's ever questions about it, and even changes that, hey, I'm changing a definition here, or I'm changing how this field and this table is being calculated, and then its end users are being notified about it. So that's kind of like a data contract, by the way, what that means.
Yeah, I mean, those two things, having those in place, think about kind of before those things were in place, you'd have to find like the data engineer, or maybe it's a database administrator or some other person. Maybe it's even just like a back-end engineer that happened to be tasked with putting this data into a table. And like, you'd have to find who that person is, ask them about all this nuance, like maybe analyze it a little yourself and make some assumptions. Just a vastly superior way to operate if you can have those tools in place. So yeah, I think those are fantastic answers there. Yeah, one good comment from Susan. Hey Susan, she's one of our former bootcamp students. Good to see you here. She's in the public sector, and she says kind of if things aren't an emergency, they're kind of getting like swept under the rug, or we're looking for the gray area to not have to focus on it because leadership just really doesn't want to prioritize the resources. And I think that sentiment probably could be echoed by a lot of companies and organizations where it's just not getting the respect that it probably should have. And yeah, I don't know how to change that other than being like Scott Taylor and like being really good at telling that story over and over again with repetition. That like it's really important, and this is what happens if you do it well, and this is what happens if you don't. But it's hard. It's really hard.
It is.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me check out the questions tab here and see. Yeah, we've got some good ones in here. One from Philippe we can put up here is what is the overlap between data security and data governance? I guess start with that part of the question would be great to hear your answer.
Yeah. So, data governance provides that kind of framework on how data is handled, used, managed, including like policies, procedures, standards that also are standards for data quality, but also data privacy, data usage as well. And, data security kind of focuses on protecting that data from unauthorized access and, of course, breaches and everything else. But that unauthorized access, tends to be role-based. So you need to understand what data you have and how that should be maybe classified, and then tie back to, okay, what are those roles and who should have access to what?
Yep.
So, yeah, I think a strong data governance program also includes these robust data security measures, if you will. They don't do data security, but they offer that foundation for data security to be able to be done properly.
Yep. Cool. I think that makes a lot of sense. There was another question here, a similar question from Sanjay. What's the difference between data governance and data management? Obviously, very related, but yeah, how would you kind of define the difference there?
Yeah. So, okay. So, as I mentioned, that a lot of things needs to be done for data to be converted into value, right? It needs to be clean, needs to be made consistent, accessible, secure, defined, understood. Then you gotta disseminate it, model it, transform it, integrate it, all these different areas. All of that really is data management. And data management, at least according to DAMA, and there's different frameworks again and definitions on this, but according to DAMA, data governance is part of data management.
Yep. Yeah, I think that sounds right to me. And for folks who like, if you want to go deeper into data management and the components, George, I've seen a video from you on LightsOnData that's probably like 10 minutes on this topic. It's great. So check out LightsOnData on YouTube. You could search data management. I think it might be called data management versus data governance or something similar to that. And it was a great video.
Thank
you. I would definitely recommend folks check that out for more. Yeah, would love to jump into some of these other questions as well. So Catherine here says, Do you think that smaller organizations are more likely to play loose with compliance issues and data governance as opposed to larger, more overlooked companies? What do you think about that, big versus small?
Yeah, I think that definitely plays a role into it. First, on what is their sort of like revenue figure
Yeah,
to be in the spotlight of those regulators. That's one thing. And then also, for example, as a startup, that's not your main concern.
yeah,
What you want to get is you want to get traction in the market, get those customers, get those sales, and that's your focus. And only after you're gonna kind of deal with maybe some of the repercussions. But that's sort of the reality of it all. And you always need to appease the investors as well, and what's your margin and everything else. So it's often not a priority, even though I think it should be. And in the long run, you're actually going to be saving money. But that's the reality.
yeah. I think you kind of nailed the two things. It's like early on, it's like grow at all costs and survive, and data governance and data security sound like a luxury. And also you're probably small enough that you're not as much of a target for hackers or for regulators. And then
True.
you get big, you're a Citigroup, like you probably, shame on you if you're not investing the resources to because you're one, you have the resources, and you're a big target at that point, So
Definitely.
yeah, great answer. Um, Curious about this one here. So this one's from Philippe. We talk about giving more democratic access to data, but then it can easily become the wild, wild west. What percentage of companies
Mhm.
work with curated data sources with data catalogs? Interesting question.
Yeah, democratizing data access, it's kind of a double-edged sword for sure. It empowers employees to make data-driven decisions, but it can also lead to chaos if not managed properly. In my experience, maybe, I don't know, 30-40% of the companies are effectively working with curated data sources while leveraging those data catalogs. I think a lot of, or a big mistake that people do when they're implementing a data catalog is they're letting the tool kind of inventory everything, and then they're making all that available for consumption. And the problem with that is that if that's not being curated before it's being made up for consumption, well, first, of course, you can have a lot of bad quality data being surfaced as well and being used, and down the stream it creates a lot of issues. And then there's a lot of silos being created because of it. Each user, they're kind of having their own way to then transform and clean that data, but in isolation. And it's not really making it back to the source system to be used by others and for others to benefit from those efforts. But also, it's decreasing trust in sometimes even the tool itself or whatever this central group is putting together and putting out there for consumption. And I think that's the biggest issue and biggest risk that we have, because trust is a currency and you can
Yeah.
lose that in a second, and it takes a lot harder to build it back up.
Yep. Yeah. What's this? The saying, trust arrives on foot and leaves on horseback. It's hard to get it back. Once you see somebody as untrustworthy, it might be it. And it's funny. Trust has come up with on a bunch of our shows in different areas, just how important that is. Because if you don't trust either the person working with the data, or you don't trust the underlying data, even if you think it's a good person, but they're playing in the mud.
Yeah.
It's tough for that person to be effective either way. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that answer. This one's pretty cool. So pretty good timing here for Kajal. Kajal says, I'll be joining a new firm next week to build a strong data governance program from the ground up. Awesome, right?
Hmm.
It's a small team, maybe 1 to 2 for now. What are some of the priorities that we as a firm need to be looking into, other than aligning with org and strategic goals that you nailed earlier?
Yeah. So once you know that, of course, you kind of have a focus on what areas you should look at. One that I've seen organizations are looking at, they're defining or splitting their data into these different domains or subject areas. One of them being, let's say, customer, another one being product. And let's say you're looking at customer. That's it can be wide, but it can also be a bit of a niche that you can focus on. And then you just focus on those gaps that you see within that customer domain. So let's say contact data can be very, very important in the customer domain because, well, first, it allows you to contact that customer in many different ways and reach out to them, follow up, if they've made a purchase, or even if they're prospective customers, you can reach out with promotions and everything else, marketing efforts. But also it gives you, or it can give you a lot of interesting details about that customer just based on their location. So that's usually the first area where a data governance program would focus on, to make sure that those are being standardized, those are being understood. You have the processes and the policies in place to manage that contact data. And afterwards, you can go on and improving it. So I would say, and that's kind of relatively easy to put together. It's easy to get consensus across the board, across the organization. And it's also affecting most, if not all, business areas. They all are benefiting somehow from this customer contact data in one way or another. So that will be maybe the first area that you can see a lot of value being brought back from doing data governance. And you can sort of help your case on, yes, we need to keep on this train and invest some more into data governance, get some other data domains under our belt, under our umbrella, and keep doing it.
Yeah, I love that. Kajal, you asked the right guy, and you're in the right place for about to start this program. And I think that's great advice. Like, focus on a quick win in a high impact, high value area and build some momentum. And the customer data sounds like a really smart first place to attack. I love, George, how like practical and tactical that advice is. So I think I'm sure Kajal appreciates that. Let's see. We've got a few more questions here. This one, I don't know what your answer is going to be. I'm so curious. Sanjay asks, what metrics can be used to measure the success of a data governance program? This sounds really hard. I don't know if there is a great answer.
I think there's two. I cover actually a lot of this in my course. There's two main categories of metrics that I will look at. One is progress metrics, so where we are with the program. And the other one is the impact metrics. I think they're both equally important. The progress metrics, those are maybe like 4 different categories. People related, you can say, how many data stewards I've trained and I have onboarded, how many employees are really trained on this, how many data owners I've identified, even like the attendance rate to workshops and sessions, the open rate for data governance related communications and things like that. Process related would be, how many processes we have approved, how many business term definitions we have in our business glossary. Technology related, how many systems we've identified, how many data sources have a data owner, how many databases we maybe now consolidated, how many shadow databases we got rid of, and things like that. Data related would be kind of the percentage reduction in data entry errors, how many data security issues we have resolved, what's the percentage of completed metadata, and things like that. And then on the impact metrics, there's again a few categories there that you can see, okay, what is that again, the impact that data governance is bringing. And usually that's what leadership really cares about. Yep. So it can be productivity related, and you can say, and you can do something like, up until now, we were doing all this manual data cleansing on these processes. We had 4 people that had to be hands-on and manually correct the data. Right now, that's maybe being automated. Even searching for data and not finding it, there are all these statistics on how much time information workers, as they call it, so anybody kind of working with the data, are wasting looking for that data and the information that they need, and they're not finding it. And again, you can equate that with the, how much they get paid per hour and how much the cost is per year that's being wasted and things like that. Costs related, let's say you're sending a marketing mail out to your customers. You don't have the contact data standards in place. You don't have good customer contact data. Well, how many are coming back? How much of that mail is not reaching the desired customer and things like that. So what's great about those is that you can really put a dollar figure on all those savings or losses that you can have. Of course, risk related, regulatory penalties and fines, like in the Citigroup's case, but even like audit response time, compliance costs, even loss of knowledge if that's not being documented. So those are some ideas. There's a lot more in my course, of course, but just to give you some ideas.
Those are fantastic. I wasn't even thinking about the sort of the progress related metrics, but I think those are kind of easy to show that you're making some momentum. And then I love the advice to kind of focus on the dollars however you can, whether that's on risk or on we're going to make more money because it's better, or we're saving more time, because that's, at the end of the day, that's the people highest up in the org there. That's what they care about the most, whether it's making more money, saving money. That's their job, whatever their title is. So that's awesome. Awesome, George. Amazing show here, George. I feel like this was really enlightening for me. I'm sure the audience got a lot out of it. Thank you so much for coming on. And to the audience, I hope you guys will join us in the future. I'm sure you got a lot out of this, and thanks for showing up.
Thank you, everyone.